Welcome back, everybody, to the Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Red Sofa here in Nashville. I'm very pleased to be joined by Subhasish Roychoudhury, who's the Executive Director of Supply Chain Technology, so playing a key role in the digital transformation of Ford's supply chain. We'll call you Roy for short in the conversation. Roy presented at the event of Ford's journey over the last couple of years, turning supply chain shortages and crises into, in many ways, supply chain advantages. And I wanted to start, Roy, with giving our audience a flavor for what that journey has looked like, what some of the key steps you've taken to achieve that.
Oh, absolutely. I think we started around 3 years ago, and at that time, right after COVID and the semiconductor crisis, right, we had a lot of challenges. So I would say prior to that, we haven't invested as much on supply chain and logistic technology. So a lot of our focus was kind of really how to bring visibility across our supply chain. So we started investing heavily on the supplier collaboration, looking across our multi-tier supply chain, but also a lot of the foundational digital enablers around yard management system, warehouse management system, and then some of the transportation management system has been going on for some time as well. Over last couple of years, we actually started replacing our MRP system, so essentially extending out our ERP solutions for manufacturing. So that's a massive undertaking. The kind of middle of all of that was a common thread of how we organize our data to kind of enable this massive digital transformation that we're going through across our supply chain and really across our entire industrial system, which covers all the way from product development, manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, and all the way to the plant operations. So, large initiative with kind of some of the key outcomes that we are looking to achieve from a cost and quality and delivery perspective.
Absolutely. So as you said, a large-scale project to update, modernize systems, look for best-in-class. You mentioned things like WMS, TMS, so specific executional systems as well. But as you referred to, one of those really foundational elements, which you spoke about, others at this event also speaking about, is how to build that unified data layer, or a more unified data layer to support the workflow orchestration. And I would also say probably to take the next step to be AI ready as well. So can you tell us a little bit about how you have worked to overcome challenges, be it in those legacy systems, in the distributed data systems? How have you helped to bring together more of a unified data layer?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question and very foundational for us. And that's something that we were very intentional about when we started all these transformations almost simultaneously. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the data that we reference across different systems, they sometimes have the same meaning, but we call it differently, right? So we actually invested in ontology. So essentially having a kind of consistent meaning of some of the kind of data classes across all the different digital systems, which was foundational for us because that's how we could tie information together. And through this data platform, we actually moved away from kind of more of a point-to-point integration that we had between different systems. Some of our more complex systems like the ERP transformation I was talking about today, the legacy systems has nearly 300 different other systems that it touches on. So it would have been a massive undertaking if we did not invest in the data platform to make that transition. But which is why this is something that we are very intentional about kind of almost 3 years ago when we started the journey, and has served us well, allowing us to kind of go much more rapidly.
Absolutely. It gives you more of a backbone infrastructure through which you can build these innovations on top, but you have that common thread, common layer. The other key aspect that I'm interested in these kinds of transformations, especially in supply chain, is the integration or collaboration across business teams, like in Ford's case, material planning, logistics, supply chain, like IT teams, obviously, that build it, and indeed also data analytics and teams. So to me, these are need to work very closely, if not right together. How has that evolved at Ford over the past years?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. In fact, one of the key conditions for success is also having kind of right partnerships across all these functions. So right around the time we started the kind of technology transformation, we also had a lot of digital leaders which started in the company in those functions, so material planning and logistics function or the supply chain function, which really was necessary because we needed to kind of have that a forward-facing view, right? Having the strategic alignment about where we are going versus kind of short-term what we need to do. So that was really essential, and we actually have a pretty collaborative governance or steering process, I would say, through which we kind of look into how the transformation is progressing, what blockers we have, what we need to help the teams. And then in terms of the technology, what we see particularly with the advent of AI, right? So we see that all functions is to be technology savvy. It's not just the IT function. There shouldn't be a separate team doing kind of analytics work because we really want the entire business to be to level up on the digital capabilities and use of analytics and AI. So we are really working to democratize that, and some of the data foundation ontology that I talked about really enables it, right? And then now with so much access to the AI tooling, right, whether it's conversational AI, LLM, now Agentic AI, that's something that's really it's no longer, it doesn't require an expert function like IT to really build it. It is pervasive.
Yes.
So that's something that we actually are very much kind of enabling versus fighting. So that I believe is going to be very critical for us as we look into the next phase. Now that we have the digital foundation, where do we go next, right?
Absolutely, because as you put it very well, your logistics teams will understand the requirements for TMS best, for example. So they should in many ways be helping, and with the tools available now, they can partly build this.
Yes.
On the other hand, without the right governance, without the right security measures, without the right layers, you could replicate something less useful over time, for example.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great point. Let's talk about some of the things you've achieved and what you're planning to achieve on your technology roadmap. You mentioned one of the things you mentioned in your presentation was supplier capacity monitoring. Can you tell us a little bit more about this tool and its benefits?
Yeah. I would call it lot more around the collaboration with our suppliers broadly, right? So we started more with kind of collaborating with the suppliers around their kind of demand forecast and supply commits, right? And then gradually we started to kind of grow the depth of collaboration we do. So the other type of thing we started to really collaborate with our suppliers on at the kind of capacity and quality. So in our supplier facilities, right? So what is the capacity that each of our suppliers have? That's super critical for us, and we wanted to really exchange information related to that, so that we understand the balance of hand. We understand kind of how, if there is any big shift is happening in the supplier capacity or some of the key quality measures. So we kind of agreed on some few key types of data that we are going to exchange with our supply base. So we enabled all of that in our supplier collaboration partner. And integrated, some of which is integrated actually with the back-end systems with our suppliers as well. But it's it depends on the level of sophistication our suppliers have. Right? Some of which are more integrated, some of which are more kind of pure data exchange.
It's a great project though, and as we talked about with some others on stage, reading the demand signals is critical for suppliers because they need to be able to adapt to the forecast versus actual consumption. But again, if everybody's doing this in different ways, you're liable to end up in a tricky situation. So being able to see this and work with suppliers is a great. The other, I think you mentioned the TMS rollout modernization. That's something we've been fortunate to hear about from some of your colleagues over the past few years as well. What would you highlight as some of the key achievements so far, and what's sort of next on the roadmap for TMS?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we have actually had modern inbound materials TMS for a while. It was not a same TMS system globally, but we are kind of converging in that because we also have a bit of a different model in different parts of the world, particularly with the lead logistic provider model varies by region. What we have been really focused on over the past year and a half is implementing our vehicle TMS. So more on the outbound logistics side, and they are much like the ERP modernization. We are actually replacing another 38-year-old mainframe-based system. So that project is going really well. Once we actually took time in selecting a partner, we recognize that the vehicle TMS needs are somewhat different than inbound TMS. And then once we selected the partner, we spent a good bit of time in defining kind of where we are going, how we can configure the solution versus building something custom for us. Pleased to say that within about 6 months of the selection, we launched our first plant. And as I sit here today, pretty much we have done with all of our North America plant deployment with the TMS solution.
That's good.
We already had some elements of that in some of the other regions, and we will kind of look to really roll out the consistent solution globally over the upcoming quarters.
Excellent. Very excited to track that and see the next stages.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, you mentioned Agentic AI, and in your presentation, you also pointed to areas like material exception handling. Can you just give us a flavor of how you see something like that working?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of in the past, and I think our journey until fairly recently was very much around, okay, let's understand what's going on with our supply chain and try to see what the issues are. I think we are really now evolving more into predicting where something may happen before it becomes an issue, and really being a lot more focused around, okay, we are now sensing the risk, we understand what it means for us. Now can we really predict and simulate, right, what might happen, and then really start to take some key decisions. So that's the loop that we are at, and what we see is very soon. Right now, we are starting to do more of this kind of a human-centric decision, right? So if we sense that, okay, this particular supplier or this particular transportation lane may have an issue based on some of the signals we are seeing, then how do we really kind of start to take proactive measures early on? We also have a lot of data related to whenever we have had crisis, what kind of actions we took. Based on that, I think we are also able to actually provide some recommendation about the type of action that we can take to potentially get out of that crisis. So that's really the state that we are at, and eventually we are trying to as we gain more confidence in those actual decisions being made, we see that process can be further automated. Right? But right now it's still a human in the loop, but that's the capability we are.
Once the trust is built and established, then the humans can focus on other aspects of that as well. Finally, I wanted to finish. We call this event digital strategies because we want it to be about what you shape, not just what happens in technology, right? Because we think of digital transformation as a leadership task. So that depends as well on how you measure success and what the KPIs, and also having shared goals, especially when you're working cross functions.
Absolutely.
What would you highlight as some of the most important KPIs or success measurement points that you look at in your roadmap?
Absolutely. At a very high level, it's still kind of our kind of cost and quality measures from a corporate level, kind of flowing it down a bit in terms of material planning, logistics. We look at production. Are we sticking to our production plan? Are we having any supplier caused production loss? That's one of the things that we do measure. We also measure our kind of logistics spend, particularly did we have any off-plan spend, what we call kind of premium logistics. So that's something that we definitely focus on. But specifically, as we are delivering the projects, it's not always, okay, have we launched this tool, but is it being widely adopted? So that's something that we are very, very focused on. So and it varies by the type of systems we are deploying. Like, for example, when we are launching our supplier collaboration system, very first thing is, okay, are all of our suppliers participating in the collaboration process?
Yes.
Okay, check.
Yes.
If they are participating in that process, okay, they are giving the commits. Looking back, how accurate is that commit, right? So that's another thing, and we have a target for that. But at the end of the day, ultimately, the reason I think we put that system in place is we don't want to be in a situation where we don't have materials available for our production. So that's the ultimate measure. So it's participation, accuracy, availability. So in that scenario, those are the type of thing that we look at and have some target that we want to achieve, so that we can gain confidence in that solution and know that it's deployed, right? So that's something. So it's really different layers of KPIs and measures that we focus on. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing these insights with our audience and here at our event. It's highly valuable. Obviously, so fast changing, but the clear success points are evident here, and we really appreciate you sharing it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes, and keep up with us. We'll share more highlights both from Roy's presentation and others here at Digital Strategies. So look forward to sharing more with you along the way.